Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to another episode of Ramadhan Inspirations right here on Ramadan TV. On today's show, we are going on a rather serious note and we are visiting the situation regarding the floods in KZN. And we do know that the devastation and the lives lost that played out. I think as you and I speak, the numbers are in the mid 200s, if not more. So a very, very tragic situation in KZN. And if we cast our minds back to June, July last year with the riots in KZN, we seem to have a situation of almost utter helplessness and hopelessness as far as the people of KZN are concerned. Alhamdulillah, it is the month of Ramadan, the month of mercy, the month of forgiveness, the month of blessings, and the month of charity. So what are we as Muslims doing as far as the plight of the people of KZN is concerned, and how do we move forward in being of more assistance? But more importantly, how do we safeguard ourselves and our loved ones? To talk to us about this situation, which is entitled Situational Awareness, is Suleiman Patel, no stranger to most of us. He's very active with Khidmatul Awaam, but he's now also commenting on the situation of situational awareness. Suleiman Patel, Assalamu alaikum, welcome to the program.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Julie, and it's lovely to talk to you and the viewership of Ramadan TV. And inshallah, Allah Ta'ala subhanahu wa ta'ala make you folks successful and going forward. And all the best of Ramadan Kareem to all our listeners.
Ameen, thumma ameen. But we are speaking under very, very sad and traumatic situation regarding the floods, the lives lost, the homes that are totally ruined. Don't even talk about the infrastructure. And you are suggesting, and I picked these messages up on groups, WhatsApp groups that we both share. And I picked up all of your comments and comments of other brothers on the group as well. There's a huge concern about how aware and how prepared we should be. What's the thinking around this, Suleiman?
So I think in simple terms, when you see what has actually transpired in KZN, when you see what has transpired last year with the riots, when you see what's happening with the burgeoning amount of kidnappings that are taking place, and the high levels of crime that we have, all of these come down to failures of what we call situational awareness. And in very simple terms, and in terms of by its very definition, situational awareness by its very nature is the ability to be perceptive, is the ability to assimilate that information and act on that information. That means you predicate based on information that you have what is going on. And you do this every single day, Julie. Every single person that jumps in the car, every single mother that's in the kitchen, you would always want to know that if you're cooking on the stove, don't bring the frying pan or the boiling water right next down to you, or don't have a handle on your particular of a pot sort of like facing you. So if a child walks past, a child could knock a pot off or a kettle off or anything of that sort and get burnt. So a simple issue there would be that you're practicing situational awareness in the kitchen, that you make sure that your child that's there does not get hurt. When a housekeeper is cleaning the home, you have a bucket of water, you're going to make sure that it's a small bucket of water so you don't have a child toppling into that bucket. When you've got a swimming pool, you make sure that on that particular swimming pool, the gate is locked or you've got a net on it. Similarly, when you have a society at large, you as an individual are always in a situational awareness. When you're in a car and you're on a highway and you're driving, you're watching the speed, you're watching the rain, you're watching the you're watching if there's potholes on the road. That is situational awareness. You always need to be aware of what's going on. When you come to a stop street and you see somebody standing there with a placard and saying and he's begging, it's situational awareness. Why? Because you need to be able to see that is that individual a threat? Is he somebody that's that could potentially that's coming into your space, and how do you be able to manage that? It could be a potential a crime that could happen if you're not watching that. So situational awareness in simple terms is in a situation, how aware are you of that particular environment, the factors, and how can you address it. So when you take it from a person into a family, in each and every single home that you have today, you provide situational awareness. You know the likelihood of people coming into you and are going to be breaking in is mostly going to be at night. So outside in your home, outside your the protection mechanisms that you've put in, you would put in, for example, external lasers. You would put in external type of intruder alarms that if somebody comes onto your perimeter wall, you'll have an electric fence that you would switch on at night. But during the day, possibly you're not going to put it on because it's less risky. With regard to that. So you're applying your situational awareness. When you take that into communities, you would do the same. If you have a gated community, you would have guards on that particular side, making sure everybody coming in logs in, registers. There are SMSs coming in to the guest that if you're coming through, please ensure that you use this SMS. That's situational awareness. Now, when you take it down to when you take it into a town where you have utility services, electricity, water. So, for example, we had a substation burning in Johannesburg yesterday, right? And we had no electricity in El Dorado Park. That was a failure of situational awareness. Why? Because that particular substation had to be subject to, for example, having surveillance systems in place. There was supposed to be armed guards on that particular place. There was supposed to be intruder detection. If all of those failures take place, that means it's been a failure of situational awareness. Even internally, if an internal fire potentially started on that particular issue, automatically inside that particular substation, there are supposed to be surveillance cameras, there's supposed to be smoke sensors, there are supposed to be various artifacts and technologies that one would be able to put into that particular power station to show, hey, listen, that before that fire started, why was it not picked up? And all of that information is supposed to be coming into a command and control center. So as you know, I'm in the digital space, right, Julie? And obviously one of the things that I was looking at and what I'm what I do is around smart cities, smart homes, smart buildings, and so forth, right? So when you take your smart cities today, and this technology has been around for I would say in the last 10 years, the technology has been around. But in the last 3 to 4 years, it's now come onto its own with AI. So if you're taking artificial intelligence, and especially with techniques in AI like deep learning, you now have the capability to be able to predict and say, okay, if a storm is coming into a particular area, this storm will be affecting, and for example, 30 millimeters will be falling within X hours. If it does fall, you would interlink that information, for example, into cities' geographical information systems, because their geographical information systems know that these are the low-lying areas, these are the flood lines, this is the amount of water that will be coming into that particular level. So automatically, the computer automatically starts generating that information and telling you that this is the type of information that can now come in. This is the number of, or this is the amount of water or megaliters of water that's going to be coming in from these particular various conduits, from these various storm water drains that's going to be coming in. And this, the AI and the computer does it in seconds and picks it up, right?
Okay,
and then at the same time,
Suleiman,
what it basically then this is that
Suleiman,
based on this is the level of the water levels that would occur. And through this, it would then be able to work out and give you various scenarios, okay, as to how the water will flow, how the water will impact in which particular areas. You've got technologies today, Julie, that are so well applied and so entrenched in terms of what you call digital security integrated mechanisms. For example, if you have a person in an airport concourse, and if a shooter comes into the airport concourse, you have software today working with the surveillance cameras that can tell you exactly the trajectory of the shooter, how he will go, how it will impact different types of firearms that he's going to be using, how will he basically carnage in that particular environment, how must the first responders respond, and all of those scenarios get played out in real time on software today.
Okay, so let's ask this question,
Suleiman. For example, when you go into airports like Dubai, etc., all of this is done. So situational awareness means that we now have the capability very, very intricately and at very, very fast speeds to prevent the carnage that has happened at a substation, the carnage that has happened in terms of what is happening in Durban and in much more other areas. Julie?
All right. Okay, so let's ask these all-important questions. You've really sketched an amazing background and factual information that is and can be at our disposal to prevent us from ever being in such situations ever again in future. But obviously it's going to mean that we need government buy-in, the will of local and provincial and national government for that matter, to buy into all of these amazing systems and put them in place so that we are forewarned and we are prepared. That's the one part of the question. And I know that you'll have a very detailed answer for me on that issue. You're probably also going to say that government has failed us, and I think we're all aware of that. What do we do? How do we move forward on this situation, and how do we make government accountable in these areas? And then the other issue is, are we not panicking? Are we not going into neurotic mode? When you say situational awareness in the home, in the community, in the schools, in the business, in the broader society, are we not going to become so neurotic that we don't lead normal lives?
So I think let me start off with your last question, right?
Okay, before you respond to me, let's take an ad break and we'll come back to you in a minute or two. Think about the questions I posed to you and you can respond right after the ad break. I'm talking with Suleiman Patel. As you've heard, he is an IT specialist. He's very au fait with all of these issues around different computer-generated packages, in AI, which is artificial intelligence, how that can serve us well in the type of situations we find ourselves currently in South Africa with the flooding and last year with the riots. And then, of course, just our own personal safety regarding home invasions, hijackings, kidnappings, all of that. We're going to try and unpack all of that and more right after the ad break.